perfect.
How are we all doing? Good? Amazing, thank you. So first of all, I want to thank you all for coming. I know some of you are still filtering in, so I really appreciate how many of you have turned out. It's amazing because when I go back home later this week, no one's going to listen to me. So this is great to have so many of you in one room. I'll go home and tell my missus and she won't believe a word I say. So I really appreciate it. So in terms of what I want to talk about today, so M is for marketing, and what I basically want to explain is for a lot of photographers, being able to shoot in manual mode is what they deem as the holy grail of being a professional. And a lot of people really put a lot of effort to being able to master the skill of shooting in manual. And I think that should become absolutely mandatory, that all of us have the ability to do so. But if we replace that M for manual mode and put it as M for marketing and put as much effort into focusing how we market ourselves as professionals, we can excel our careers a lot further. So what I want to do is talk about the marketing techniques that I've used to help propel my career and break them down into very simple steps and try to give you something that you can take away and actually implement yourself. Because I've used all of these steps and they're things that I've learned from reading books and going to seminars, and I've utilised them all in different places to sort of get myself to where I am. And if you guys don't know sort of anything about me, and this is the first time you've heard of me, I'll talk a little bit about my career and how long it's taken me to get to the point to stand in front of so many of you guys here today. So that's what we're going to talk about. So a little bit about myself. So my name is Luke Curtis. I'm a freelance music photographer. So I started taking pictures probably professionally back in 2015, which isn't a huge period of time ago. I had a career in Sony, which I'll go into a little bit later, but I made the decision I wanted to be a dance music photographer, and in a very short period of time I've been able to excel myself to not only do well in the dance music community but also be recognised in the photographic community and get the opportunity to come and talk at places like this about how I've got to where I am today. One of my favourite shoots, for me this is a personal accolade, I got to shoot my first front cover, which was in Ibiza for a promoter called Elro, and we managed to get that chicken on the front of a magazine, which was a massive accolade for me and was my first front cover. So I was really excited about that, and it's always the picture I go to because it holds a lot of sentimental value to me. I would always say I am better at marketing than I am at taking pictures. I'm not here today to show you amazing pictures because I personally think my pictures are pretty average compared to what everybody else does in my industry. I'm here today because my ability to market myself and put myself in front of the right opportunities, and hopefully I can give you some tips and pointers to be able to do the same in your career. These are some of the images I shoot, and very commonplace for a lot of dance music photographers to be able to produce work like this. One of my heroes is actually here today, so Mark. I first saw Mark's images in a magazine years and years ago, and he was one of the guys that was a catalyst for me wanting to do what I do today. And Mark produces work better than this 9 times out of 10. And it's great to have Mark here. So I would say the work I do is very average in the industry I work in. So I'm not going to show you any amazing images today because I'm here to talk about the marketing side of photography. So a little bit about me. I started my career at Sony, and my job at Sony was to build the marketing content and the training content to help them sell TVs. I spent a large period of time there. This is me talking about TVs. I probably weighed about 3 stone more than I do now, talking about TVs and helping them sell those TVs. And what I learned working for Sony, I've used on myself. I've taken those principles and used to propel myself in front of the right people. And the catalyst for me becoming a photographer was I was expecting my little girl, Isabella, and someone said to me, so Sam Pilling, if you get a chance, go to the Sony stage today. There's a guy called Sam Pilling. He said to me, Luke, get a camera so you don't miss your daughter growing up. And now, I'd say 5-6 years later, I'm now here at a photography show that he's training. So he was the catalyst for me to go off and want to be a photographer. So I left Sony with full of enthusiasm to go and be a photographer. And the reality is I failed miserably for 2 years, absolutely fell flat on my face. And the reason being is I didn't have a specialism. I didn't focus on a certain area. I shot everything that was put in front of me. And I think in terms of being a jack of all trade, when it comes to the arts, you should really hone in on a specialist field and focus on solving a specialist problem. So since I've became a photographer, so I left Sony back in 2014, so 5 odd years ago, and I've gone on this journey to be a photographer. And since then, these are some of the accolades that I've managed to rack up. So I've traveled to 8 countries taking pictures, flown over 100 times. I have 7 different sponsors that range from Capture One, Pele, Samyang. All of these guys want to work with me, not because I'm an amazing photographer, but because I have the ability to get a message to an audience, so utilizing marketing to do that. Gone through 9 speed lights. A lot of them have been broken in clubs, which is pretty sad. I've attended over 150 parties, and my hairline shows it. My YouTube channel when I wrote this, it was 90,000 views. I've just reached 100,000 views on my YouTube channel. Invoices sent. I've managed to do 32 talks of this style. I've been to 27 festivals. I've shot over 200 DJs. I've worked for companies such as Warner Music, and I've gone through 4 camera bodies, and I now have a studio. Now, is all of that because of good photography or good marketing? I personally think it's because of good marketing. And what I have been given as an opportunity off the back of good marketing is new opportunity. So because I can market myself well, new opportunities come towards me, and that forces my hand at being a better creative, because I have new challenging commissions in front of me that I have to adapt to and produce. If I wasn't marketing myself as well, I wouldn't have got the same opportunities. So it's absolutely crucial that you get the marketing right to be able to be given new and challenging opportunities. So again, not through being a great photographer, it comes from being good at marketing. So what is the secret? What have I done over the last few years to get to myself? So I've broken it down into 10 stages, and I want to talk a little bit about each of those stages with examples to kind of give you an idea. So the first one that's really absolutely mission critical is choose your field. Now, when I started off, I shot everything. I shot equestrian, I shot weddings, I shot my friends that are bodybuilders, I shot cars. It was just a blanket statement of I can take pictures. Now, nobody really wants that when it comes to the arts. They want a specialist to do so. So it's really important you find your field. Now, I done some urbex. I lurked around London suspiciously late at night taking pictures of buildings. I took pictures of my friends that are bodybuilders. I shot weddings. I shot commercial headshots. And each of those elements, I kind of worked out what I did and I didn't like. And then eventually I got to the point of shooting dance music, and I fell in love with it. And I said to myself, if I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, this is where I want to do it. You know, this gives me everything I need, and it makes me super happy. And if I'm going to focus my efforts, this is where I'm going to do it, because I won't regret it and I won't resent it later on in life. And from there, things have started to propel forward. So my first thing I would advise you all is find what you love and focus on it massively. So for instance, you know, if you do like weddings, focus on shooting weddings. If you love cats, start taking cat pictures. You know, if you love trainers, start being a commercial, you know, product shooter for trainers. Like, find what you love and focus on it. The next one is be a specialist, okay? So be a specialist and solve a niche problem in a niche market. So this guy here, obviously, he's got all the gear, you know, he looks like he can take on any challenge in the world, but people don't want that in the arts. They want someone who's an absolute specialist. And if we talk about specialisms in photography, so for instance, you have portrait. You can be a corporate portrait photographer, you can do journalism, you can take pictures of music events, you can do landscape, and the niche of your landscape photography could be a specific geographic area. So for instance, Toby Shinobi, who's one of the Sony ambassadors, like, he focused on shooting London, and that's his niche field, and since then he's gone off to shoot the world as an ambassador for them because he honed in on a real specialist area. You then have automotive, you have events. You know, if you do events, you could focus on bar mitzvahs. You know, that's your specialism. It makes sense to really hone in on an area as opposed to just a blanket statement of being able to do it all. You also have animals. You could focus on a specific breed of animals. So once you define what you love, find out the genre of photography you want to shoot and the specialist field you want to work in. So for me, as an example, mine was I wanted to be a music photographer or an event photographer in the dance music industry. I didn't choose rock music, I didn't choose pop music, it was dance music that I wanted to focus on. Don't be this guy. So stage number 3, we've identified what we love, we know where we want to do it, you know, we know what genre of photography we want to shoot. The next one is find your clients. And this sounds really simple, like, you know, obviously fish where the fish are, it's very simple. You know, for me personally, it was about integrating myself into the dance music community. So I would go to parties and I would go to festivals, even if I didn't have my camera on me, and I would make a point of networking with people so they knew who I was and they knew who I was about. So say for instance, you want to be a specialist wedding photographer, go to wedding fairs because that's where your clients are potentially going to hang out. Integrate yourself in that environment so people can become familiar with you. And that's really important when we talk about the next step. So has anyone ever seen these guys? So when it comes to breeding pandas, they don't want them to be tainted by humans, or they don't want them to become familiar with humans. So what they basically do is they dress themselves up as pandas to take away sort of that risk. So what I would say is you blend in with the community that you're integrating in. So be involved in the market, be a panda, don't stand out basically. If you want to be a wedding photographer, go to wedding fairs, be excited about talking and shooting weddings. If you want to be a dance music photographer, go to festivals, go to raves, talk to promoters, do that to sort of blend in with the industry. So sort of be as much involved in the market as you possibly can. And then the next one, this is the most important part, the absolute most important part, is identify what the problem is. Now, what comes next is probably going to upset a few photographers, but I will be really honest with you. A lot of people don't want your pictures. They want you to solve a specific problem. And I'm going to talk more about those problems in a second. There's a really famous book called This Is Marketing by Seth Godin, and he talks heavily about a 1/4-inch drill bit. And he basically says, nobody needs a 1/4-inch drill bit. Nobody needs it. It's a single purpose use. Once it's used, it goes in a cupboard, nobody touches it again. What they actually need is a hole in the wall. But nobody actually needs a hole in the wall. So beyond that, what they actually need is a shelf. Why do they need a shelf? It's because they want to put cherished memories. So therefore, in terms of you solving the problem, you have to identify what the purpose of your photography is going to do. So from there, we look at what is the purpose of your photography, and I break them down into 2 categories just because I like to keep things simple. So for me, people want to cherish memories, so weddings, babies, like bar mitzvahs, things like that. They are memories that want to be cherished. Your job as a photographer is to solve that problem, to create memories that can be cherished. Don't talk about the technicalities or the lenses that you're using to create this content. Talk about, making the day more memorable and the bits you can add to that. And the next one is marketing and sales. So for instance, when I shoot parties, people don't shoot parties because of the amazing colours I can make. They want me to shoot them because they use them to promote people to come to the next party. So it has to look exciting, it has to look energy rich. So people look at that image and go, I want to go to that party. So my job as a photographer is not to give the promoter amazing pictures. My job as a photographer is to entice their clients to come back next time. That's the problem that I'm trying to solve every time. And as I said, this may upset a few of you. Nobody wants pictures. Just like nobody wants a cafetiere. It's a single purpose. What do you want it for? Use that to make coffee. Once you've made coffee, it's done. You don't actually need it beyond that point. Fridges. Nobody wants a fridge. Everyone wants cool food. Solving people's problems. Once upon a time, people used to turn up at your house with ice packs, and you use those ice packs to cool your food. That was solving the problem then. Then fridges came around. Everybody wants cool food. What have we got next? Umbrellas. Nobody really needs an umbrella. People just don't want to get wet. And it goes on and it goes on. An iron. Nobody needs an iron. They just want uncreased clothes. And this is about solving the problem. So all these products solve a specific problem. And our job as photographers, in my opinion, is to solve our clients' problems. So solve the problem. I'm going to give you an example of the type of photography that I would do. So this is a press shot for a DJ. The bottom is the picture. That's what I provide as a photographer. Now I could just provide that picture, but there are many other photographers that can do exactly the same as that. So what I decided to do is start focusing on the problem that this specific DJ has. He wants to promote himself, he wants to get out to a bigger audience. So how can I help him do that? So I look at how the image is going to be used in terms of how he promotes his touring dates. I also then created a YouTube video talking about EPKs. And an EPK is an electronic press kit. And that's what a DJ will use to promote themselves. It's effectively their CV. So I've become a specialist in DJs writing their CVs, how they will put together their bios, the images that they'll use, the number of images, and the content they build around it. I no longer talk about taking their pictures. I talk about solving their problem in terms of they need an EPK. And that's how I've managed to solve my particular client's problem. And it's a really important thing to do. And it helps take us beyond just taking pictures, We all have to solve a problem. And these are just some examples I've used from different genres of photography, because if there are other genres of photography in here, you can look at these and use these as examples of how you can help solve your clients' problems. So wedding photography. People want the pictures because they want to cherish the moment. So what can you do to help them solve that problem? You could start advising and creating content that makes their day more memorable. So create a blog talking about the steps you can take to make your day more memorable, in terms of how you plan it, in terms of what you wear, in terms of the people you invite. Not talking about the pictures, you're talking about the problem the pictures are trying to solve. If you then produce content that sits in line with a good set of images, you solve their problem far beyond just being a photographer. Corporate headshots. These are for self-promotion. So companies will need this to portray a good brand image. Like, how do you portray yourself best as a brand? Or people will use them to go and search for new jobs. So you want to come across as approachable and friendly. So how can you help headshot clients solve their problem? Well, what you want to do is produce content talking about how personal brand impacts the first impressions that people make. So yes, of course, you're a photographer and you offer headshots, but you produce this super rich content talking about how they can use those headshots to make better use of them. And an analogy I'll always use is, you can give any idiot a Formula One car. It doesn't mean they're going to win races. You know, you want to educate them how best to use that content so they can go off in the world and do so. When you do that, you become invaluable. The next step is music photography. So I spoke about this briefly before. So music photography is mainly about promoting and marketing events so people come back next time. So what you could do is you could start producing content to educate promoters how to best use their images. So for instance, promoters may want to use all of the 200 images that you've shot. You can educate them that it's actually better to release 10 images per week over the next 4 weeks in the lead up to their next party, because it keeps your audience engaged and captivated. You go beyond just taking pictures. You're showing them how to solve their problem. Their problem is they need more people to come back to the party. Your images facilitate that, but you can go beyond that point by doing things like this. Smallest viable audience. Now, my niche is extremely small. I used to shoot parties. I'm now a portrait photographer. I shoot DJs. That's the only people I shoot. I shoot DJs in the UK house music scene. So I don't go off and do headshots for companies. I don't work with banks. I don't do actors. I specialize in this field. It's my smallest viable audience. And the reason you target a smallest viable audience is because if you get it right, niche industries tend to be very close-knit. If you can solve the problem for a small number of people in that industry, the reality is they will be closely connected to other people with the same problem. And then you start moving into referral marketing. And it's very easy for them to reference you as the person that solved their problem. And in turn, that will bring in new business. So what I would say the smallest viable audience is look at potentially 10 people, get right with those guys, work with them to solve their specific problem. They will then bleed that message out to people with exactly the same problem, and in turn that will bring in more images. So this image here is shot of a DJ. The reason I use this one is I shot it for free. I went around, I worked with maybe 10 or 12 DJs. I went and shot their press shots. I focused on the marketing side of why they would need those press shots, and I used those as my examples. They then went and shared those images on social media. Other DJs in the same niche field come across the same problem, thought, there's a guy that can solve my problem, and therefore started turning this tunnel of business that kept on coming towards me. And it's now very much defined that I am a portrait photographer in the dance music industry because of using this process. And again, that referral marketing. So all niche markets tend to be very close knit. If you can solve the problem for one person in that niche, you will solve it for others very quickly. The next one is become an expert. So experts in any chosen field will always be able to demand a higher transaction value. They can charge more money for their expertise. So how do we go about becoming an expert? Well, it goes back to the steps we talked about before in terms of producing this content that helps solve their problem. As soon as you start educating others and you start helping them solve their problem, you're put in a position of education. People love that. They're excited by it. It's very much like teachers. You'll always respect a teacher because they're enriching your life. They're teaching you stuff that you'll go off and utilize. If you're teaching your clients and you're educating your clients, you'll be seen as an expert in your field. And that's kind of like the reputation I've managed to give myself in the dance music industry. People will come to me and not talk to me about pictures. They'll talk to me how to best write their bio, or how to best put their EPK together, or actually how do I host my EPK online. I will then go back to them and say, the best way to do it is a cloud-based storage system so it can be utilized anywhere in the world and also have a PDF version that's interactive. I've become an expert in my field and people come to me for that. So no longer coming to me just for me to take pictures, because the reality is, like I said before, there's hundreds of photographers that can do just that. I want to go beyond that. I want to really focus on solving their problem. If we look at experts educate their clients, they share best practices, they strive for knowledge in the field, and they always try to develop their markets. So a lot of what I do on my YouTube channel is all about trying to educate people in my industry with the same problem. My mum always says to me, she says, Luke, you're giving away all your secrets, what are you doing? Like, people will be able to do what you do. It's super important to enrich your industry because that will play a part in setting you apart as an expert, and that in turn will allow you to charge a higher transaction value for the service you provide, and also bring you in new clients. If we look at just taking pictures, he takes great pictures. If you compare the guy who takes great pictures to the expert, the expert has more opportunity in front of him. Some of the ways you can do it: you can use social media to create blogs and posts, you can use podcasts, you can also write content on blogs, you can do speaks, you can do talks. So part of what I do is, in terms of profiling myself as an expert, I stand in front of people in the photographic industry and tell them what I do. That plays a part in continuing to build my position as an expert. People in the dance music community will hear about this and they'll go, oh, that's the guy that teaches people about EPKs. He's the guy I want to work with, as opposed to the person who just takes pictures. So experts, as I said, they can charge a higher transaction value. That means they can charge more money for their expertise. They tend to deal with larger clients. They don't often compete with others. An expert's price is an expert's price. They can influence trends. They can play a part in terms of the trends that are set in their industry. It's easier to create additional revenue streams as an expert. And what I mean about that is, yes, I go out and take pictures and I earn money from that, but I also have affiliate sponsors. So I have affiliate sponsors with Capture One. By using my YouTube channel, I've created additional revenue streams by being an expert. I no longer have to go out and take pictures to earn money, because as we all know, we only have a certain amount of time in this world. As you know, as that time slowly comes down, you lose the opportunity to go out in front of people and take pictures. So I've created additional revenue streams that mean I don't physically have to be in front of my clients to take pictures. I can bring in money from the likes of YouTube. I can do guest talks, so on and so forth. And that comes from being an expert. 9, this is a really interesting point. One of my this is really important to me. Stop competing with other photographers. Stop competing. Now, has anyone seen Anchorman? There's that scene when they all meet out in the street and it's just absolute mayhem. We don't need to be like that. The reality is, when we side with our peers in the industry, because of that time factor, we can only earn money when we're physically in front of our client. There will become a time where your peers can't be in front of a client. So if we side with them and we're respected by our peers, the probability is that work can be passed to us and we can pass work back. So for instance, Mark in front of me does exactly the same as me in the same industry, and we regularly pass work between each other. We don't hate each other, we don't fight each other when we see each other in the streets, we respect each other and we pass work. That in turn will give you more opportunity, and you do that with as many creatives as possible. So stop competing over the same content. From this as well, you'll get referrals. You support each other in your network. That support is going to lead to a wider education. You're going to come away knowing stuff that you didn't know. Like, I've helped Mark on shoots and assisted him, and I've come away with so much. I've learned so much from that process. I can then utilize that in my own processes and therefore become a better creative. And we can share opportunities. Become an expert, not a photographer, and it makes sense to not compete to do so. And the last step, I kind of talked about this previously before, is automate your income. So we've identified what we want to do as a niche, we've found the market that we want to specialize in and the genre we want to specialize in. We know where our customers are going to be and the problem that they have, and we know how to solve it, and we're slowly becoming an expert in that process of solving that problem. Once we get to that point, we need to find a way to automate our income. So you're now an expert. You are very specialized in creating or solving a problem for a very niche market. Create an ebook. Go about writing an ebook that you can stick on your website and charge $9.99 for it. You no longer have to be stood in front of your customer to earn money. People who hear about you and hear about your reputation will want that content because they have a problem they need solving. They will then go off and potentially buy it. So ways you can earn money and create additional income streams as a photographer. Obviously, take pictures. You can write a book. A lot of photographers, if you walk around today, people like Joe McNally, people like Jason, there's a huge amount of photographers that have written books. Now, a lot of them will write books because they've got so much knowledge that they want to share with the world. But it's a revenue stream. These guys no longer have to be out 7 days a week taking pictures. People are buying their book, and that's supplementing their income because they've created themselves an expert in a niche field. And that's what we need to be looking at as well. And you can do that in any industry. You're not limited at all. And then consultancy. So I regularly go to companies and help them set up their lights. So they'll say to me, I want to do this shoot, I don't know how to light it. I charge them a consultancy fee to do it. So I'm not physically taking pictures, I'm educating them on the expertise that I've gained over the years. Prints. You can create prints and you can sell prints via your website, especially music photographers, if you've got the license to do so. Take these pictures that you've shot at these amazing venues and sell those online. They're creating additional revenue streams. And affiliate marketing. So if you get to the point where you follow these stages and you position yourself as an expert, companies at places like this are desperate to work with creatives that have a captive audience. They want you to help them sell their products. get in front of them, utilize the profile that you've created and say, hey, look, you know, I've got a captive audience of X amount, I can help you sell your products, especially if you use the products already. So Capture One, I went from shooting in Lightroom to using Capture One and I loved it. I created a video on YouTube. The guys at Capture One heard about it, they came back to me. I now have an affiliate program off the back of it. I now have an additional income that I don't physically have to go out and break my back earning, which is, you know, it's a very useful thing to have. So that's the 10 steps covered. So I want to thank you all massively for staying attentive and listening, and I hope it all had some value and there was something to take away from it. My last little bit of tip is these are 3 books that I've used and I've learned a lot from, and I think they play a huge part in becoming a better marketeer and a better creative. So the first one, This Is Marketing by Seth Godin, is an amazing book. Key Person of Influence is also an amazing book by Daniel Presley, and then Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Working Week. Between all of those books, I've utilized some of the strategies and ideologies to help myself propel forward. If any of you would like this presentation as well, feel free to pop me an email and I'll happily send it to you so you can use it as a reference point. But thank you ever so much for your time. I really, really, really appreciate it.